started right about now. So anyone in the hall, if they can start making their way in. Hey everyone, I am Austin Dobson. I'm the Regional Field Director for the southeast part of the state, and I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their Mondays to come down to Doyle's, and thank you Doyle's for hosting us. It's always a great venue. Our first speaker is Les Bernal. Les is the National Director for a group Stop Predatory Gambling and has spent the past 7 years working against government sponsorship of casinos. He has strong Massachusetts roots, having worked in the State House and on political campaigns in the state. So please give Les a warm welcome.
Well, good evening. My name is Les Bernal, and I'm the National Director of Stop Predatory Gambling. And we're based in Washington, D.C. And what we are is we are a transpartisan network of individuals, groups, and organizations across the country from all across the political spectrum, from every state, who are working to end the unfairness and inequality of opportunity that's created by government sponsorship of casinos and lotteries. So when I say that, most people are like, I didn't wake up, no one goes to college to study, taking on the casino industry or the state lottery. So this was an issue where I learned about, frankly, very candidly, from working in the Massachusetts Senate. I worked as a chief of staff several years ago to a state senator named Sue Tucker, who represented the city where I live in. Because aside from being involved in some Massachusetts politics, I'm from Lawrence, Massachusetts, and when I'm not traveling, I live out of Lawrence. And so this is an issue to me. The more I learned about it from working with Senator Tucker and others at the State House, it became one of those issues that kind of boiled down to a central question, and that is this who we are? Is this who we are? It's an issue where the more I learned about it, I said if people really understood what this public policy is about, it wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be here and having this debate around the country, or especially here in Massachusetts. So we're a network of citizens. So 7 years ago, I left the State House and helped build a national movement across this country, because what's happening here in Massachusetts is happening in almost every state in this country. This has been our big answer to economic development, is to bring in casinos and other predatory forms of gambling. And it says a lot. So again, so the question here is this who we are? And put it differently is, are we a people who believes the role of government is to promote fairness and equality of opportunity for all?
Yeah.
And I believe that, and I know you believe that. And what's great about this, following me, you're going to hear from a gentleman who's a former Republican congressman who feels the same way. And that's what's unique about this. We're the most politically diverse movement in America. And so I just want to say that up front. I'm very proud to be here, and I appreciate the kind invitation just to say a few words about this issue. And then I'll be around for some questions afterwards. And I just want to say, because we're transpartisan, I'm not here, I can't officially endorse the campaign, but I really respect the guts it takes from a political leader to stand up and take this issue on. So very briefly, when we say, government sponsorship of casinos creates inequality, it's at least three ways it creates inequality. The first is it creates financial inequality. There's no better public policy that represents a massive wealth transfer from the have-nots to the haves than government sponsorship of casinos. That's what it is.
That's right.
Yeah. And we talk about as if Steve Wynn and Caesars and Mohegan Sun, as if these guys are some kind of private corporation entrepreneurs. They exist only with the blessing of state government to get a region monopoly. So this isn't some kind of entrepreneurs doing this stuff in Silicon Valley. This is a government program in partnership with the most powerful special interests in America that's pushing this. So it extracts enormous wealth from working people, low-income, middle-income families, and gives it to billionaires. Okay? So it creates financial inequality. And anyone who says, well, this is about the whales, right? This is about wealthy people gambling. All you need to do is walk into any regional casino in America today, and the slot machines in those buildings, they're penny slot machines and nickel slot machines. Okay? Penny slot machines and nickel slot machines. Those are low denomination machines. Those are working class people. No millionaires flying in from China to gamble in a local casino playing penny slot machines. These are our neighbors, our co-workers, our family members.
Seniors.
Yeah, seniors. So financial inequality. Secondly, it creates social inequality. Okay, social inequality. So this is literally a government policy that renders hundreds of thousands of people across this country as expendable. Even when we debate this, we say, listen, we admit we're going to create, more than 100,000 new problem gamblers in Massachusetts. That means you're addicted to gambling. It means your life is ruined. So the rest of us, we're going to benefit maybe from some of this revenue, maybe to help fund a few roads, fix a few bridges. But I'm sorry, so 1 out of 20 of you, tough luck. You need to sacrifice your life so we can pay school teachers. That is the epitome of a failed public policy. And that's how it creates social inequality. And if there's one example, kind of the poster child for how this creates social inequality is, there's people that will say, well, Les, at a minimum, I hear you on this stuff and I'm with you, but we need the jobs. This is going to put some jobs in there. Well, these are jobs. Anyone who says that to you, this is your rebuttal. These are jobs that create inequality. Okay? These are jobs that create inequality. And the fact that puts the exclamation point on that is right now, we wake up tomorrow morning, if you were to call the Illinois Gambling Commission, okay, most people who are gambling addicts never come forward for help. So roughly 90 to 95% of citizens who are addicted to gambling never even step forward. That being said, in Illinois right now, there's a thing called a self-exclusion list. And we have it here in Massachusetts, where if you're the addict, you have to go into the casino and say, ban me. Okay, it's not the fact, even though I'm an addict, I'm here every night, I have to take the initiative as an addict to cut myself off. That kind of shows what a phony policy it is. But nonetheless, self-exclusion is still out there as a policy. There's almost 11,000 citizens today on the state of Illinois' self-exclusion list. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of people who are gambling addicts. Guess how many people work at the state's casinos, including full-time and part-time jobs? Roughly 7,300 people. Okay? So we have 25% more addicts who have come forward and publicly banned themselves from the casinos than people who actually work at the state's casinos. So if that's not the epitome of a failed public policy, I don't know what is. So thirdly, it says it creates financial inequality, social inequality, and then it creates civic inequality. Right? People in Massachusetts or any other state, they're not pounding the table saying we want casinos. This wasn't driven by a citizen movement demanding this in their neighborhoods. This was driven by the most powerful special interests in the country. In casino operators spending billions and tens of millions of dollars in state after state to push this. Okay? So we talk about Citizens United, right? How corporate interests are taking over our system of government. Like, this is the poster child for that issue. They're completely driven by the most powerful special interests in the country. And in this campaign to repeal casinos in Massachusetts, they're going to spend more money than any campaign has ever been done in Massachusetts. $30 to $40 million at least on a campaign here to try to sell people supposedly something people already want. Okay? So if you care about Citizens United or any kind of good government issue, it runs through getting government out of the casino business. So let's kind of summarize here. My last favorite fact I love to talk about this, just to underscore what a ripoff this is to the public and how it creates inequality, is we call this phenomenon the smartest guys not in the room.
Yes.
So what I mean by that, so those of you who remember Enron was this big scandal back in the mid part of last decade where you had these big energy executives would stand up before working people, everyday people like you and say, keep your money in our company, keep your retirement pensions invested in our company. Okay, because we're going someplace, all right? Meanwhile, every Enron executive was selling their own stock in that company, okay? And month after month, they kept selling, and soon after, their stock went bankrupt. So hundreds of thousands of workers for Enron lost all their retirement pension. And these Enron executives made a fortune. So it was a great documentary that came out, a great book called The Smartest Guys in the Room. Okay, that's what they call it. This is the smartest guys not in the room. Because just like those Enron executives, casino operators, the slot machine makers, the public officials who promote casinos, guess what? None of them gamble. None of them. Gary Loveman, who's the CEO of Caesars, he doesn't gamble. Okay, so quote told the Wall Street Journal that. But Richard Fields, who's the primary owner at Suffolk Downs, the big driver here in Boston, told the Boston Globe, he's never gambled in his life. Think about that. He's never gambled in his life, but he wants the working people of Boston to lose their retirement pensions, their rent checks, their college tuition dollars to his product. Okay. So the casino executives, they don't gamble. How about the slot machine makers, right? The famous story, the IGT executives out there. The New York Times reporter went out a few years ago, interviewed the workers at IGT who makes the slot machines. One by one, he asked them, do you gamble? Do you play the slot machines you make? And guess what? None of them played the slots. And the kicker was, he went to one final guy and he says, so, do you play these slot machines? And remember, this is to a New York Times reporter. The employee spit on the floor. He said, slots are for losers. Think about that. To a New York Times reporter. And he begged to take it off the record after he said it. And of course, the New York Times reporter did not do that. But think about it. Who said, those of you who work, what have you said to your consumers, your customers? My product is for losers. Who else does that? No one. Okay? And then lastly, the public officials that promote this, sadly, all these public officials in our state, the big ones, from the speaker, the governor, all these folks, they don't go to slot machines. They don't play this stuff. Okay, so we talk about inequality. What's good for them should be good for all. Okay. So just to summarize, remember this: slots are for losers, right? So the question: is this who we are? No. Is this who we are? Of course not. So I'll close with this. It's inevitable that casinos will be repealed in Massachusetts, whether it's in November of this year. Whether it's in 2015 or 2016, it's inevitable it's going to be repealed. It's not a question of if, but when. And the reason why it's inevitable is because we, as a people, whether you're Republican or Democrat, believe that government should promote fairness and equality of opportunity for all. It's something that we may disagree how to get there, but we as a people believe those are some core principles of our country. So the only thing that stands between us and making that happen is you and I and everyone else out there. We need to go out and work for it. And I think this campaign is really part of that effort, part of that movement nationally that's happening, and I'm proud to say a few words today and appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Les. Our next speaker, I'm really fortunate to introduce tonight, former Congressman and Republican gubernatorial nominee Bob Steele. Come on. Bob is the author of a novel, The Curse, Big-Time Gambling's Seduction of a Small New England Town. And having taken a look at it, I really strongly urge all of you guys to take a quick read of that before casting your ballots in November. And without further ado, let's give a big round of applause to Congressman Steele.
Thank you very much. And thanks for inviting me to this Democratic stronghold. I did see one Republican picture way in the back there behind one of the tables. I know that. I know it's a nonpartisan group. Well, some of you, thank you, first of all. Some of you may wonder why a Connecticut Republican would come all the way up to Boston to help boost a Democratic candidate for governor of the state of Massachusetts. But Don Berwick is an increasingly important and vital voice on an increasingly important issue, the spread of casino gambling across the region and across the country. And I'm very, very pleased to come here this evening to stand with him on this issue. "25 years ago, Congress passed something called the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, which was designed to help poor, federally recognized Indian tribes build casinos on their reservations in order to raise money to support their tribal governments. It'd be fair to say, however, that Congress had absolutely no idea of the Pandora's box it was opening when it passed this law. Because the law not only opened the door to Indian casinos across the country, Indian-sponsored casinos, but also led to an explosion in the number of commercial casinos as more and more states rushed in to take advantage of the opening to legalize casinos in order to, in their mind, create jobs and also try to develop a new source of revenue for their states. Back in 1988, when this law was passed, there were only 2 states in the United States that allowed casinos. Nevada, obviously, with Las Vegas, and New Jersey with Atlantic City. Today, there are 39 states with casinos, and we now have almost 1,000 of them, just about equally divided between Indian-sponsored casinos and so-called commercial casinos. As a result, casino gambling has literally become America's new national pastime, with more people going to casinos than to professional baseball, football, and basketball games combined. It's become that big. But nowhere did it get off to a more spectacular start than in my state of Connecticut. Foxwoods opened back in 1992 in the town of Ledyard, and Mohegan Sun opened in 1996, just 8 miles away. They were the first casinos in the entire entire East Coast of the United States, the entire land east of the Mississippi River, except in Atlantic City, some 250 miles away. And with no other competition, they quickly grew to be the 2 biggest casinos in the world, creating well over 20,000 casino jobs, attracting over 60% of their customers from out of state, mainly from New York and Massachusetts, Rhode Island, but all over the Northeast, and sending hundreds of millions of dollars to the state treasury in Hartford. Now, Massachusetts officials have repeatedly referred to these spectacular numbers in making a case for legalizing casino gambling here in the Bay State. But one has to wonder whether your officials have looked at the downside of Connecticut's casinos, and especially at what has been happening in Connecticut lately. The casino's presence has created a pervasive gambling culture in southeastern Connecticut. They've sharply skewed our economy toward low-paying service jobs, and they've resulted in a sharp spike in the number of Connecticut residents seeking treatment for gambling addiction. One of the most remarkable findings of a 2009 State of Connecticut-sponsored study was that since the casinos had opened, there had been a 400% increase in the number of arrests for embezzlement in Connecticut, a rate of increase 10 times the national average. In fact, my tax collector in Ledyard was one of the embezzlers. She stole $302,000 from tax receipts in order to play the slots at Foxwoods. And of course, she didn't win, because over time, statistically, nobody wins. It's statistically impossible. And she went to prison. I never knew whether my tax receipts were among them or not, but I suspect they were. In any event, the number of arrests for embezzlement in southeastern Connecticut has been so great that a columnist for the New London Day, our largest newspaper, has described southeastern Connecticut as the embezzlement capital of America. Now, as far back as 1997, Congress, which had opened the door to this explosion, became so concerned about what it had done and the impact of this enormous spread of casino gambling around the country, that Congress and the President set up a national commission to study the issue. And based on the Commission's findings, the Commission recommended that there be a moratorium on the building of new casinos across the United States until Congress could get a better handle on the social and economic costs. Needless to say, however, thanks to the opposition of the casino industry, this recommendation was never implemented. In the process, since then, casinos, as I've indicated, have exploded across America. And in the process, the casino industry has become a $63 billion industry, and one of the most powerful political groups, as Les said, in the United States. The industry contends that casinos spur economic development, create jobs, and send much-needed revenue to states and municipalities. Opponents, however, have long maintained that casinos do far more harm than good. They begin with the facts that gambling, after all, is addictive for millions of people, and that gambling addiction leads to debt, bankruptcies, broken families, and crime. Second, they reject the contention that casinos promote economic development. Pretty important, because that's the huge argument you're hearing here in Massachusetts. In Connecticut's case, they point out that casinos, however, have done little to spur economic development, but instead have cannibalized existing businesses and left people with much less money to spend on other goods and services. Third, opponents to casino gambling say there is very little evidence that casinos actually improve on a long-term basis a state's or a municipality's finances. Connecticut, they note, receives 25% of Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun's slot revenue and has taken in now over $6.5 billion in shared slot revenue over the last 16 to 20 years. Yet today, Connecticut is in the worst financial shape in its history, with the highest debt and the highest unfunded liabilities of any state in the United States. And now, a nonpartisan group of scholars and public policy experts is assembled by the Institute for American Values in New York, has just released a study, a report, that looks at the impact of this casino explosion on the nation as a whole. And I'd like to just very briefly give you their findings. One, once an occasional and largely upper-class activity, casino gambling has moved from the margins to the mainstream of American life. Two, today's regional casinos are different from traditional Vegas-style resort casinos that catered predominantly to well-heeled players who came from long distances away and preferred table games. In contrast, the new casinos are primarily filled with a new generation of highly addictive slot machines and cater overwhelmingly to middle and low rollers who live within an hour away, return frequently, and play the slots. Three, modern slot machines have transformed American gambling. They are no longer the one-armed bandits that we tend to think of when we think of slot machines. In fact, the new slot machines don't even have arms. Instead, according to MIT professor Natasha Schul, today's slots have become sophisticated computers engineered to create fast, continuous, and repeat betting designed to get players to gamble longer and lose more over time. As a matter of fact, the casinos are now assigning lifetime values to their customers. Four, while casinos represent themselves as benign entertainment companies, they are in fact predatory businesses that depend on problem gamblers, that is, people with some level of gambling addiction, for anywhere from 40 to 50% of their profits. Five, living within 10 miles of a casino more than doubles the likelihood of developing a gambling addiction. So Les was very serious about, he was telling you about the 1 in 20 ratio. Six, casinos constitute a regressive tax that hits low-wage earners, minorities, and the elderly particularly hard. People who can afford to lose their money, their hard-earned money, the least. In summary, according to the study, the long-term costs of the new regional and local casinos exceed their benefits by at least 3 to 1. They drain wealth from communities, weaken nearby businesses, and reduce volunteerism, civic participation, family stability, and other forms of social capital that are at the heart of a successful community. That is the latest study on the spread of casino gambling across the United States. Now, despite the costs, the conventional wisdom has been that Connecticut's casinos have been a net economic plus for the state of Connecticut because of all the people who come from out of state and leave their money in Connecticut. But the regional monopoly that allowed Connecticut to attract all of these people from out of state is rapidly ending, and some would argue is completely over. When Foxwoods opened back in 1992, there were only 8 other casinos in the entire 12 states of the Northeast. Foxwoods was the 9th. Today there are 56 casinos in the 12 states of the Northeast, soon to be 76 based on the number that are under consideration. As a result of this growing competition, Connecticut's casino revenue has fallen steadily for the last 5 years. It's fallen from a peak of $430 million to under $300 million today, and it's continuing to plummet. Layoffs at both Connecticut casinos are underway. The casinos are increasingly turning to part-time jobs in order to lower overall wage costs and get rid of benefits. And Foxwoods, the granddaddy of all the great casinos, really, after 1988 in the United States, has already defaulted on $500 million worth of its debt and continues to be deeply in debt. The same downward trend is underway in several other northeastern states. Just last week, Delaware approved a $10 million bailout for its 3 casinos, while New Jersey has spent hundreds of millions of dollars in order to bolster its flailing casinos. In fact, the Atlantic Club in Atlantic City just closed 2 months ago. A Showboat has just announced in the last couple days it's going to close on July 27th. And the biggest, grandest, most spectacular of all the New Jersey and East Coast casinos, the Revel, or as they call it in Atlantic City, just Revel, because it sounds like more fun, has already now, it just opened in 2011, it's already filed for bankruptcy protection twice, and is expected to close at the end of this year. In conclusion, the data about the social and political health costs of casinos is mounting, while the economic arguments that have been used to justify those costs are collapsing. Why then would anyone in this great progressive state at this moment want to bring a casino into Massachusetts? Thanks very much.
Thanks, Congressman Steele. So in just one moment, Don's going to take the mic and I guess bring it home about why casinos are a bad bet for Massachusetts. Before that takes place, I want to keep your guys' attention for about 5 minutes while I talk a little bit about myself and what brings me here, and I guess a little bit about why it's so vitally important for everyone here to get involved with the campaign and I guess bolster our grassroots organization. So I was born in the South Side of Chicago in 1989. Yeah, Chicago White Sox. Yeah, just kidding. I was born in Chicago in 1989. My mom was a neonatal nurse at Cook County Hospital.
What's your name?
Amy Dobson. And at the time, Cook County Hospital served a majority was minority community, and she was delivering babies. And my mom, I guess, is kind of my hero growing up, and my first memory of her was kind of a sad memory. She came home in tears for about 3 days straight, I guess, concerned about the women that she was helping deliver babies to. She was delivering babies to a set of 14, 15-year-old women with no prenatal care, very little family planning services, and usually had poor home lives and kind of didn't have that family safety net that so much of us take for granted in the great state of Massachusetts. I guess since I've lived, when my sister was born and when I got to be about school age, my parents collectively decided Chicago's probably not the best place to raise children, especially the south side of Chicago. So we moved to Fairfield, Connecticut, and if you guys know Connecticut, it's one of the most affluent areas in the state. So I guess that direct contrast for me was very impactful growing up, and kind of got me focused on, I guess, institutional poverty, I guess generational poverty, and inequity in a broad sense. Since then, I guess, going to college, I knew I wanted to help out with progressive candidates. When I was 17, I took a year off college to intern for Obama campaign in Florida, and we won, which was great. And in 2012, most recently, I was there as a regional field director, and kind of wanted to take a break from politics. It was, it was extremely tiring. Those of you who have done field know that it's a really, really taxing effort. And I got a call from someone with a Berwick campaign, and they said, take a look at Don. He's unlike any candidate you've ever seen. I was like, yeah, I hear that from everyone. Thank you. I'm all set. And I told my mom, and she said, no, you have to look into this guy. He's an extremely impressive person. Please take a look. So I did take a look. I did take a look, and I was working at a finance company down in Copley Square. I met with my now boss at lunch, and I walked up after lunch and gave him my 2-week resignation notice, and started that Monday. Actually, they just wanted me out. So I guess since then I've come to realize that Don is really the only candidate dedicated to tackling these structural problems of inequality that I guess present barriers to social mobility for the most vulnerable among us. That's a big reason why I'm here, and I think that's a big reason why a lot of you guys are here.
Yes.
I guess to talk for a moment about our grassroots organization. How many of you guys, by a show of hands, were at the convention probably a month ago now? That's awesome. Give yourself a round of applause. That's great. I guess based purely on our grassroots organizing, we were able to bring a candidate who was relatively unknown, first-time candidate, to basically tie the Democratic frontrunner in delegate votes and completely shake up the Massachusetts political establishment. That's amazing. And the work isn't over, so I need everyone in here to lend me your time, your effort, your friend's time, your friend's effort, your money, and your friend's money, because we need all of that. So please, before you leave, talk to one of the amazing field staff in the back. We have clipboards out front, and please sign up for phone banking shifts and canvassing shifts. And before I bore everyone to death, I would really, my great honor and pleasure to introduce the next governor of Massachusetts, Don Berwick.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Austin, for your leadership here and that introduction. I want to thank Les and Congressman Steele for being here. It wasn't easy for either of them to be here. Congressman Steele especially drove 3 hours from Essex, Connecticut to be here this evening. And I want to shout out to you all here. The way out of the mess our country's in is with an informed public, people willing to think about the issues that face them and really study them and get to the right answers, and we have a right answer here. Casinos will be bad for Massachusetts, and we need to stop them. That's been my position for over a year. It was based on my reading of the evidence. I'm the only candidate for governor who unequivocally holds that view. I think the casino repeal initiative is actually bigger than the casino issue. This is truly democracy at work. It's mobilization. It's people speaking truth to power, the kind of power that Les and Bob were talking about. They're not quaking in the face of big money, but they're taking on the big money, and the people are going to win. That I think that the spirit, the courage, the intelligence that can overcome the big money casino lobby can be a resource over and over again for building the society that we want. We can use that spirit to ensure that hardworking people can earn incomes that are sufficient for them to take care of their families, that we educate our children in a 21st century world, regardless of where they live or how much their parents earn. We can use that spirit to reform health care, to achieve Medicare for all in this state. We can use it to end hunger and homelessness and poverty. And we can use that spirit to affirm the values that will make Massachusetts the beacon we need to be. Social justice, equality, and compassion is fundamental to public and private life. Now back to casinos. We do not have to guess what casinos are going to do to Massachusetts. You've heard that. We can predict with near certainty what will happen here because over 30 other states have paid the price already. Here's what casinos are going to do to Massachusetts, as you've heard. They will hurt small businesses. Take a look at the devastation on Main Street in Niagara Falls, New York, if you doubt that. Businesses shuttered and closed. They're going to decrease economic well-being. They're going to hurt workers and families. Norwich and Ledyard, Connecticut found median family incomes fall by $20,000 a year after Foxwoods opened. According to studies at the University of Buffalo, every slot machine costs one job per year. A typical casino has 5,000 slot machines. Foxwood has 6,300. They're going to hurt public safety. They're going to increase petty crime, DUIs, prostitution in their areas. Please note, we are in a state that forbids happy hours. But our own casino law, our own law allows casinos to distribute free or discounted drinks on the gambling floor except between 1 a.m. and 8 a.m. DUIs in Norwich, Connecticut have doubled since their casino opened. Once in our midst, I guarantee the casinos are going to argue hard and persistently for online casino gambling as well. It's a slippery slope. 3 states are already slipped down that slope and more are considering it. They're going to induce and aggravate a very serious mental health burden, gambling addiction, as you've heard. Some research shows a doubling of rates of gambling addiction within a 10-mile radius of a casino. They're going to drain revenue from Massachusetts' lottery. As much as a third of the revenue are going to be lost. That's money denied to our cities and towns, which can spend their share of their lottery income any way they wish right now. Perhaps worst of all, they will, as you've heard, selectively harm people of lower income, and they'll perpetuate income inequality. Casinos target that demographic group specifically. They aim to woo low-wage earners through sophisticated marketing and engineered payoff routines. They make poverty worse. Casinos hurt us all, but they will hurt the poor most, and we ought not to stand for that. So why, given this ominous and well-documented track record, would anyone wish casinos in our state? Well, generally, there are 4 main arguments made, and not one of them holds water. First, some say casinos are going to add needed jobs. Here's the reality. They also cost jobs. 1 job per slot machine for starters. They drive neighboring small businesses out of business. Casinos hire only a fraction of their employees from the neighboring community. In Springfield, for example, the MGM community agreement requires that only 35% of casino jobs go to Springfield residents. And despite empty promises, most of the jobs casinos create are marginal jobs. Nationally, a median annual salary for a casino worker of just about $20,000 a year, well below the federal poverty line for a family of 4. Personal bankruptcies in states with casinos have gone up 20%, and property values have fallen 20%. Robberies and assaults double. Yeah, we need jobs in Massachusetts, urgently. But we need to focus on industries that grow our economy, that provide good jobs for our residents, and we should develop public policy to support those industries and job growth. Those policies are better transportation systems for transportation-based development, smart growth, strong education, strong vocational programs, higher minimum wages, relief from needless regulations for businesses, and single-payer health care, which is a job creator. Those policies, not casinos, those are roots to real economic growth. Second, some say that, well, people are going to gamble anyway. Why not keep the money in our state? Well, the answer is because that's not what really happens. The vast majority of casino visits are from people who live within 30 miles of the casino. And as for businesses going to other states, Massachusetts residents now spend about $93 million a year in the Connecticut casinos. Even if half of that revenue would actually stay in Massachusetts, which I seriously doubt, that's less than the money the casinos will drain from the lottery. And add on to that the huge social costs to communities that are associated with casinos. The math just doesn't add up. It's not revenue, it's loss. Third argument. Some say, well, we need the money for state government revenues. That's highly misleading. You've heard the Congressman's report. In the long run, casinos have had a negative impact on state revenues in nearly every state that has casino gambling. That's because a large portion of casino revenues is just diverted from existing revenue sources, like reduced lottery revenues, by as much as 30 or 40%. Gambling dollars also, they're dollars taken away from activities that are more economically productive and that generate more tax revenues. And casinos add to state costs. Who do you think pays for the additional social services, for public safety, for healthcare costs associated with gambling addiction? Who pays for DUIs and their consequences, for fraud, for money laundering, for prostitution and sex trafficking, for robberies and assaults and their remediation and bankruptcies? You bet. The same people we think get revenue. And fourth, some people say, well, the casino decision should be local if the state values local control. Well, we are a state. We value local control. But look at the costs and look at the damages from casinos. They're not local at all. A decision by any city or any town in the Commonwealth to house a casino is going to affect entire regions. And our state will be affected as a whole. There is very little that's really local about this issue at all. It's the wrong argument. Now, it would be better if we didn't have to repeal a law in order to protect our Commonwealth. We didn't have to unwind this, but we do. An error was made. I think we should admit it, we should correct it, and we should move on. Say again, we absolutely need to create jobs, so let's do that. Let's do it the right way. We'll need to work hard to find the revenues that we need for a progressive agenda through healthcare reform, through closing loopholes in our tax code, and moving toward fair taxation in which the wealthy contribute at a higher tax rate and those at lower levels of income at lower rate, but not by burdening the poor and people struggling in this economy. It is wrong. And look, in the end, I'm a pediatrician, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and in the final analysis, who is willing to be a governor who wants to look into the eyes of a child whose parent is a victim of gambling addiction, who lost a job, who lost their dignity, maybe lost their marriage, and say, sorry kid, we needed the money? Maybe Martha Coakley is. Maybe Steve Rosen is. But I am not.
Thank you so much, Don. Now we're going to open up the floor to some questions. Both Les and Congressman Steele indicated they would stay and answer questions if you have some specific ones for them as well. If you guys can orderly make your way up to the mic right there, we will take the questions in order.
Hi, my name is Sahal Kim. I live in Cambridge, and I'm a graduate student at Harvard University. When the casino law is repealed, what does that mean for the Wampanoags and their effort to build a casino in Martha's Vineyard?
Nobody knows the answer to that, including the Bureau of Indian Affairs in Washington. But clearly, it is going to give the state of Massachusetts another strong defense against casinos. but it isn't a guarantee. It depends a lot on the federal government and interpretation of the strength of Massachusetts laws.
Paul Galvin from Dorchester, and a proud delegate for Don for governor. Don't need verbal thank you. I just want to know if the remarks by the Republican congressman in this Democratic House will be appended to the website for Don for governor or something.
I'll just say yes. The guy just drove 3 hours to get here. We'll cut him some slack. But I will tell you that in considering this issue, which I did on the merits, on the facts, Congressman Steele and Les have been incredibly generous with their time and their energy and their coaching to me, and I couldn't be more grateful to you for that.
So I'll take that as a yes. The second question I have, or remark, is the American Society of Civil Engineers, ASCE, is a website that documents every state in the Union and the state and the United States as a whole in terms of our infrastructure, our bridges, our roads, our dams, and so forth. And they're all pretty well going to hell in terms of a grade. They're D+ to C- at best, and extremely well detailed, and at the interest rates lowest ever in our history, and the need, since it's been patchwork since the Eisenhower years. This is a great time to have Massachusetts take the lead, and that would be a major job boost, and paralleling your opponent's big dig experience. I think that would be a nice parallel. Thank you.
Building on what Paul said, I mean, I don't want any part of the position on casinos to show any insensitivity to the need to grow jobs in this Commonwealth. It's practically job one for us. But my view is the progressive agenda is a jobs agenda, just as Paul said. If we get about the job of rebuilding our infrastructure, creating smart growth, building affordable housing, investing in better schools, supporting vocational education, everything I just listed and a ton of other things on the progressive agenda add jobs to the Commonwealth the right way. This is not a trade-off against jobs. It's in favor of progressive agenda.
Martin Long from Arlington, Mass. How are you? I apologize in advance because I should have done my research in advance before this, but I didn't. The question didn't occur to me before I came here. And then, can you explain to me what your position on the lottery is? This isn't a gotcha. It's a sincere question, and as much why as you can.
Yeah, well, we're beginning to dig ourselves into a hole in casinos. We dug ourselves into a very deep one, the lottery. At this point, the use of lottery revenue in the Commonwealth, $970 million or something at that level, which is upon which cities and towns now absolutely do rely and have for a long time. I think at this point it's not realistic to go backward on the lottery.
Can I stop your point? We all know money's fungible, so
yeah.
Lottery, not budget.
Yeah, no, I understand. My position on lottery right now is I want to focus on the casino issue, and should I become governor, we're going to look hard at the way the lottery is run to make sure that the regressive characteristics of the lottery are mitigated as far as we possibly can, as many of the problems that Les has pointed out.
Do we not think we already have that? I mean, if our governor were here today, he'd say we've mitigated those issues already. I'm not trying to get gotcha. I'm just trying to. Mr. Patrick, yes, Governor Patrick would say that today, I'm sure. So I'm not trying to gotcha, I'm really curious.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the effects of a gambling culture on the distribution of wealth and income in the Commonwealth. I'm telling you, should I become governor, we will keep that under. I will look at that in the lottery system. We're going to very carefully see what we can do to mitigate that effect.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hi, sir. Nazim Lemon in Boston, Massachusetts, a proud volunteer for your campaign. How would you feel working with anti-casino lieutenant governor candidate like Leland Chung versus Kerrigan and Lake, who are pro-casino, just like Martha Coakley? And if they were elected, how would you deal with them?
If I'm elected governor, we'll build a team, and I'll lead that team, and we will not support casino.
Jody Silverman, a resident of JP, and I have worked for progressive officials for most of my life, but I'm now in public health, something you understand greatly.
I do.
And one of the things you also understand is that unfortunately facts and science don't always rule the day. Vaccines, fluoride, casino gambling. However, as I think about this issue, what continuously comes to mind, and I'm going to read this quote, so forgive my vernacular because it's a direct quote from a tobacco executive. And this whole issue very much reminds me of what happened with tobacco. And I say this because one of the things that I think might resonate is to read some of the stuff that Les entertained us with, unfortunately, about what these executives have said and know about what they do. This is a direct quote, and it'll be familiar to many people, from a tobacco executive, which is, and I quote, "We don't smoke this shit, we just sell it. We reserve the right to smoke for the young, the poor, the black, and the stupid." They knew exactly what they were doing, the damage they were causing, as do the gambling companies. Is there a way to take that and leverage that issue to get rid of gambling in Massachusetts?
You know, I am running for governor in no small part because of my experience in Washington running Medicare and Medicaid for President Obama. I was proud to serve there, proud to be part of making healthcare a human right in America, and got a lot of good done. But I also saw a country in which more and more the voice of wealth, the voice of accumulated power and wealth, controls the public dialogue through misinformation, through the media, through opacity, and through lobbying and political contributions. And I think it's the wrong direction to go. I said publicly that I think the worst piece of public policy in my lifetime is Citizens United. Which is why, with all real respect for the anti-casino movement in the state, when you watch what happened in East Boston, for example, at No Easty Casino, against enormous amounts of wealth, nonetheless being able to get people together to study the truth, learn the truth, tell the truth, and win, that is massive. That is bigger than casinos. And the answer I have to the question you asked is that's what mobilization is going to mean in the progressive world. Not in this era, if we do it right, people are going to start to feel that they have voice, they can stand up, and this control by people who have strongly vested self-interest in a defective status quo ends. That's what excites me about the anti-casino movement as much as the anti-casino issue itself.
Good evening, Don.
How are you doing, Joe?
My name is Joe DePina. I'm from Roxbury native, and I do support Don. I'm more here to make a comment more than ask a question. I made my way here enjoying the weather, but I had to come here this evening because I thought about this issue, and I'm going to look out to the crowd because the more I had to think about it, the more I thought about it, the damage that I went through as a child with a father that scratched tickets and drank.
Yes.
And how it mentally affected me and many people in my family and caused the abuse and the physical abuse on my mother from my father because of the gambling and drinking. And I thought about it and I said, you know, I'm going to get down there because I need to go and let everybody else know why I stand with Don against casinos. I stand with Don against casinos because it's going to mentally affect our community. The poor are going to get poorer. The middle class are going to become low class. Homes are going to be lost. The mental, it's bad enough we don't have enough mental facilities in this state, in which is another battle of mine. But just imagine 20 times of what we have now going on, and we don't have the facilities to house them. And then what is it going to be? Now the new business is going to be that we're going to build mental homes and we're going to build non-profits around gambling issues. So why don't we build non-profits about the mental issues that we already have in our communities? It doesn't just go for the African American community. I see it in the Caucasian communities. I see it in the next communities. I have friends all over the state, and I see it. So can you imagine when you lose a home, and a parent loses a home, they lose everything, what are they going to turn to? Heroin. cocaine. So now we have another epidemic. So I stand with Don Berwick, and I hope everybody else that's not decided in this room will stand with Don Berwick based on that issue.
My name is Barton Bruce. I'm from Arlington, Mass. And some of the things I'm going to say or ask are really because you're a medical doctor, but they would still be askable to anybody, and some are outside that area. We've got all kinds of things happening to us. There are people who say that the fluoride they put in the water is bad for us. The government won't tell us what they're spraying out of chemtrail planes, but for a long time I guess they were denying it was even happening, and I don't know if they bothered to do that anymore because it's gotten pretty obvious. But they're doing it, and I don't know if there's any at a state level you can stop them from doing that. There's the drug industry who want Columbine-grade mind rape drugs administered to any child in school, especially they can get this earlier they can get them, the better, and they'd be happy if they could keep them on them throughout their life, and that's just nonsense. That's what brings all kinds of troubles. And we have false flag operations, sometimes run by big government agencies with lots of money for local agencies, and they do all kinds of horrible things to control public opinion. And these are real criminal activities being done by our government, and we've got a news media that is in lockstep with them and will never tell us the truth about it. And I don't know what, again, at the state level and as a governor you can do, but stopping state agencies and state forces and towns and things being bought and paid for by government agencies whose agenda is not good for the citizens is well worth thinking about, and I don't know what you can do.
Thanks a lot. I'll just make one comment on that. Our questioner was reciting a list of concerns he has in which he feels that the control of information, the failure of government intervention, or opacity in government is producing harm to people or risks in the society. Without commenting on that individual list, I will say one thing. If I get to be your governor, and I would dearly love to be,
when?
I want to try to base our policies on values, social justice, equality, compassion, and on facts. And I believe that policies that derive from the evidence are going to be the best policies for us to use. And that is what we're saying on the casino issue. And I promise you, we're going to work with truth as far as we can know that truth.
My name is John Spears. I'm only from about a mile away, so I really didn't take 3 hours to get here. I just want to comment on the lottery issue a little bit, that it's a justice issue. The population of our inner city, 100,000 households, 260,000 people, their only hope of getting out of the economic segregation of that community is winning the lottery. So the idea to work towards a more progressive lottery is to figure out not just what city as a whole the revenue is coming from, but what wards and what particular areas it's coming from, and then try to adjust our laws so that the money coming out of those particular wards goes back in those particular wards and gives people something more than just foolish hope. Right. So that's what I'm saying.
Let me ask Les to make a comment on the lottery. I know this is, we're focusing on casinos tonight, and you have some thoughts about this. Let's take a minute. And then we'll take one more question and break. Yeah.
Just very, we have strong views on the lottery, and the lottery is a failed public policy. Okay? There's a candidate in this race for governor whose theme is financial inequality, yet the office he oversees has put out a $30 scratch ticket. Okay? And it was ironic. As I walked into and over the bar, there's a sign that says, "Freedom, buy war bonds." Okay? So that was the voice of government. We used to encourage people to save money. We had an expanding middle class. Today, the reason why the lottery and it segues into casinos, why this issue matters so much, and it touches on the gentleman's comments about, all these other issues that government isn't working in the public interest, is the way government communicates to us today is through constant calls to gamble. What else does government advertise? Think about it. What else does government advertise?
That's right.
Military recruitment, but mostly it's constant calls to gamble, whether it's lotteries and now casinos. So what government incentivizes shapes our national character. So if you believe in a common good, all these issues that what government is not working in the common good,
This is again, this runs through this. You can't have a society when you promote the common good when the public voice of government is about cheating and exploiting people.
That's right.
Okay? So the lottery is another fight for another day, right? Thank you.
Out of respect for your time, let's take one more question, and it's, of course, from you, Annie. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Annie Russo. I'm from JP. I actually don't have a question. I have a thank you. I want to thank you for coming to JP, and I want to thank you for running. I want to thank you for being brave enough to speak the truth about all these issues. And I want to ask everybody in this room who happens to live in JP to come and see me. I happen to have a bag of clipboards already in case anybody wants to come out and canvas, or you can canvas from my house tomorrow night. So thank you, Don. You keep giving me hope that we will get this right someday in this country. Thank you.
Thank you all. I want to thank Congressman Steele and Les and Austin for helping put this together, and most of all you for being here. An activated public is the answer to building the Commonwealth we want for the future, so please stay engaged. Thank you so much.
And let's give one more big round of applause to Don. And again, on your way out, we have clipboards with sign-in information for volunteering. And thank you guys for coming out.